These days, we have such a huge range of options available to us when it comes to different groups of effects pedals. And delay pedals are one of these things that we have an abundance of available to us right now as guitar players. But as you may know, through the years, certain pedals always stick with us as go-to pedals that we always return to. These are classic pedals that, regardless of what cool new products come out, there are certain things that we always return to because they are almost like a comfort blanket to us as guitar players, or they're just things that are so well established that we know they're going to do the job we need them to do. And one of those pedals is the Line 6 DL4. The DL4 has been around for a long time, but in this video we're going to be checking out the brand new DL4 MkII and seeing what Line 6 have done to bring this classic unit up to date. So the original Line 6 DL4 actually came out in 1999, if you'll believe that, nearly 25 years ago. The original DL4 was part of a series of 4 other pedals. There was the delay, which was the DL4. There was a distortion overdrive unit, a modulation unit, and a reverb unit. These are all big box pedals, and they were some of the first modeling effects units around. So nearly 25 years later, people are still talking about the DL4. It's become a bit of a cult classic. I'll be completely honest, I don't own one, much to my own regret. I actually almost bought one about a year ago, right before the MkII dropped. And when the MkII dropped, the demand for the original ones went up. And, we know what that means, so does the price. So I actually lost out, and now they're actually worth quite a bit of money. So I do wish I'd bought one. But I do have the MkII, which is great. And we're going to talk about why in this video. So before we start checking out the pedal and talking about what it can do, I just want to let you guys know this is a sponsored video today. Line 6 are paying me to make this video, and they have provided me with the DL4 for the purpose of making the video, but all the thoughts and opinions you're going to hear today are my own as always. So the first big difference between the Mark I and the MkII is the visuals. So the MkII is a smaller unit. Now this is still a big delay pedal, but it is a lot smaller than the Mark I. The Mark I was actually quite a sizable unit. So even though the visuals have changed, there's a lot of stuff that's still the same, as well as some cool new stuff. So from the outset, it's actually very similar to use. The control layout is the same, and we've still got 4 foot switches across the front of the unit. A, B, and C for our presets. We've also got a dedicated tap tempo switch. Now originally they were going to go for 4 presets, and the tap tempo was going to be a separate switch which you'd link up with an external jack. But George Trips of Way Huge was actually part of the original design because he was helping procure vintage units for the modeling part of the original Line 6 units, and he suggested keep the dedicated tap tempo on this. So they've actually kept that, which is quite nice. So we've got 3 presets and a tap tempo switch. There is a way we can change this switch to give us like a separate bank of 3 presets, which is quite useful as well, but it is very handy having your own tap tempo switch. So on top of the unit, they've actually kept the controls all the same. So these controls here are actually the same as the original unit. So if you have a Mark I DL4, you're not going to find this any different to set up and tweak. It's very intuitive. If you've used one of the originals, this is essentially identical to use in that sense. So while it looks complicated, it's not actually that bad. We have the model selector knob here. So you can see there's 2 different models on each position, one in white and one in green, which we'll get onto in a moment. We've got the legacy button here, or the alt button. It has 2 different names depending on what we're using it for. This is what's going to help us change between these and some secret features we'll talk about later on. Then we have the time/subdivision knob. This is the length of the delay or the subdivision, depending on what we're setting up. The repeats, which is how long the delay goes on for. We have 2 controls, which are called tweak and tweeze. Each of the delays has its own adjustable parameters, like be that modulation, or, some of them have like a drive, or there's some harmony delays where we pick a key and a scale. Those 2 controls are going to help us choose those sort of sub menus. And then we have the mix control, which is how much of the delay signal and the dry signal you're hearing. 4 foot switches across the bottom, A, B, and C, and the tap tempo. But you'll notice these also have other symbols underneath because this has a built-in looper as well. So you can actually use this for looping live, and even in the studio or wherever you want to do some looping, you can use this for that as well as delay pedal. So the alt/legacy button that you have here is used to allow us to select between the new algorithms and the old Mark I algorithms. So this actually is a Mark I DL4 and a Mark II DL4 in one, which is quite cool. We've got all 16 of the original sounds with all the new sounds as well. But this also allows us to access other parameters with the control knobs and inside the looper. This does a huge amount of stuff. There's so many features on this pedal that we can't actually cover them all in one video. The user manual for this is absolutely massive. And yet this thing does way more than just a delay. So now we're going to go to the rear panel where we'll see the huge amount of connectivity this thing has. So starting over here, we've got an expression pedal input, but we can also add another foot switch here to unlock 2 more presets. So 5 and 6. If you imagine we've got 4 across the front, this will give us an extra 2. There's a level control here, which is for the microphone input. So if you want to use a dynamic microphone like an SM58 or 57, you can plug that in there. This doesn't have phantom power, so it has to be a dynamic mic. And then this is the microphone level. Then we've got stereo in, stereo out, can also be run in mono, MIDI in and out, a USB-C there for updating the firmware. This runs off 9-volt DC at 500 milliamps, so it's kind of power hungry, but it's not crazy. And then at the top, we've got a micro SD card port. This is for extending the looping time, but also if you want to use the same loop over and over again, you can essentially pre-record a loop either at home or 1 gig, for instance, and then it'll save that loop between power cycles of the unit then as well, which is very handy because you might come up with something quite cool you want to use all the time. The micro SD card can help with that. So like I said, there's a huge amount of features on this. We can't really even get around to scratching the surface on most of those features in one video unless it's going to be a 4 or 5 hour long video. So I'm going to plug this thing in now and we're going to hear some of the tones. Right, so gear-wise, I am using my Chapman Guitars ML3 Traditional. This is going into the DL4 Mark II, which is going into the Walrus Audio ACS1, which is their amp and cab simulator pedal. This is running in full stereo. So I'm going mono into the DL4, stereo out into the ACS1, and stereo out of the ACS1 into my audio interface. So there's a hard left and right on the guitar signal here. So when we come to some of the ping pong delays, if you're listening on headphones or speakers, you'll hear it going between the 2 sides. So the ACS1 is set on a Fender style amp, which is completely clean, and it sounds like this. So straight out of the box, the DL4 comes loaded with 3 presets on A, B, and C. Now you'll notice here that A is actually illuminated, but when I turn it on, it gets brighter. So whichever preset is active will have the ring around it lit dimly, and then when you engage it, it goes bright. So if I go to preset B, the same thing applies. See, it's dimly lit, now it's on. Same with C, bright means on, dimly lit means that it's just selected on that preset. So let's start with preset A. So there's a little bit of modulation on that. Quite a nice way to start. Preset B, that's a little bit more wacky. And C. Okay, that's quite cool. It's got a nice kind of sweep to it. So those are the 3 presets you get there straight out of the box. Obviously you can see I've not actually touched anything. Everything is just straight up at midnight. So this has the original 16 features, 15 delays and the looper, and it also has 15 new delays. So the original 15 are the ones that you had on the Mark I DL4, and then the new ones, I believe, are from the Helix. So this is kind of like a crossover between the delays on the Helix and the delays on the original Mark I DL4. So that gives us 2 lots of 15, so there's 30 different delay types in this unit, which is incredible, and a looper, and there's also a secret reverb section with 15 different reverbs. Now that isn't labeled anywhere on the pedal, so we'll talk about that later on, how to access that, but there's a bunch of really cool reverbs in this from the Helix as well, which again are very useful when you're dialing in ambient and cool delay tones. So I've got my cheat sheet at hand here because, and this comes with the DL4 by the way, so if you buy one of these you'll get this really handy cheat sheet in the box. This is just giving me all the information I need on what the tweak and tweeze controls do for everything, because as you can see here, there's a lot of stuff to get through. So to try and memorize all this is going to be quite tricky. You know, maybe you wouldn't use this too much if you like to just, you know, twist it and see what happens, but I like to kind of know what I'm doing. So I'm going to be using this as I go along. Okay, so now we're going to start going through some delay models. So I'm not really going to go too crazy with the tweaking here. I'm going to leave the pedal mostly alone unless the tweak and tweeze controls do something quite cool. So like I said, we've got the repeats, which is the number of repeats. So if I set this very low, just to give you an idea, we get like a single repeat, and all the way up. Goes on for a while. I think it actually says in the manual that technically it's capable of infinite. So if you're using a very kind of tape echoey analog delay type thing, we can probably get some of those cool delay feedback loops as well. Tweak and tweeze controls are the things that this tells us what they do. So in this setting, it is bit and sample quality, bitrate and sample quality, and modulation depth. So we'll tweak those in a moment. And then we have the mix control at the end. This is how much of your dry signal you're hearing versus the delay signal. So with this all the way down, it's just dry. We're not getting any delay there. And then we turn it all the way up, we only get delay. So there's a delay in what you play because your actual initial dry signal isn't there. Then the delay comes through. So for the most part, I'm probably just going to be leaving that on about halfway and the repeats on halfway. The subdivisions and the time is the length of time. So obviously we can use the tap tempo switch for that as well. If you want the delay faster or slower, this knob is going to control that. And with subdivisions, this is really useful if you're really dialing in something specific. So if you want like an 8th note delay, a 16th note delay, a dotted 8th note delay, whatever you want there, that control will help you do that. Things can get a bit wacky and weird if you're just randomly assigning things on that knob. So I'm not going to really touch that at all for this video. I'm just going to leave it at whatever each of the presets is set to, purely because we'll be here for hours just going through all the different subdivisions. So we're going to start with the Mark II delays. I'm going to start on vintage digital at the top, and I'm just going to work around clockwise. We'll hear a little bit about what each one does, and I'll just move the tweak and tweeze controls for each one. So vintage digital, it's bitrate and sample quality and modulation depth. I'm going to be referring to my cheat sheet, which is on the desk in front of me, quite a bit as we go through all the different models here. So there we have a nice analog delay actually with a little bit of modulation, and then we can add this kind of bit crushery thing. I don't personally have much use for that in my own playing, but I'm sure in the right hands that's quite a cool effect to use. Then we've got crisscross, so we've got delay time B, so I'm guessing this is some kind of dual delay, and cross amount. So we can have two different delays here running at different times. Yeah, so there's kind of like a ping pong thing going on there with alternate timings. So that's quite a weird one. Again, I probably wouldn't use that too much. I'm not a big fan of the overly wacky multi-delay thing. I just like a straight analog delay personally. The Euclidean delay, this is step fill and rotate. So I'm guessing this is going to be quite an interesting one. So there's a bit of a rhythmic thing going on there. That's quite fun. That's a really interesting one. That would be really cool for some creative stuff. Dual delay, the controls now do the right delay time and the right feedback. So we're going to hear two different delays here in stereo. So the cool thing with the multi-delays on this is when you initially select the model, they come pre-synced. So you don't have to worry about syncing them up because that can be quite a nightmare. They are sort of pre-synced out of the gate. Pitch echo. So now we have pitch interval and pitch sense for this. So that can get a bit wacky, but in the default setting, it's quite nice. Quite a nice sound straight away there. Next up, we've got ADT. This stands for automatic double tracking. This is something people used to use in the studio in the 70s and 80s to basically make your guitars sound like it was double tracked. Here we have distortion deck 2, whatever that means. So I'm guessing some kind of distortion processing and modulation deck. So with this one, you can hear that that's a very tight slapbacky kind of delay, like two guitars playing just out of time with each other. Almost like chorusy. really weird. That is kind of feels like playing with latency because I'm hearing more of the double track rather than my dry guitar there. Yeah, that's very strange. It kind of feels like I'm playing. If you've ever plugged into an audio interface and played with a slight bit of latency, that feels weird. It doesn't sound weird, but it feels weird. But that's cool though. That's really useful as an effect there. Then we've got duct delay. So we've got threshold and attack release here. So next up, we've got the harmony delay. This is really cool because this kind of acts almost like an arpeggiator with triads. So we've got the key and the scale. So the scale is the sort of triad grouping that we're using. So I'm going to put this all the way down so it functions in the key of A. And then the first setting here is also an A major triad. So if I just play an A note, what you're getting is this. Just an A major triad played as an arpeggio. Now that's really cool because we can almost create some cool riffs there. And then as we increase this control, obviously it changes the key, so where we play the root needs to change. This control changes the triad that we're doing. So the second position is going to be a minor triad. So we should get this now. So there's our minor triad. Then it goes in some of the weirder ones. So I've got another cheat sheet on the screen in front of me now telling me what all these are. The next one is the 1, 2, and 3 intervals from a major scale. Then the 1, 2, 3 from a minor scale. Then it goes into some of the weirder ones now. So the next one is the root, down an octave, and up an octave. The next one is 1, 5, and octave. So this is like a power chord played as an arpeggio. Then we've got the root, 3 semitones down and 3 semitones up in major. And then the same thing in minor. So that's pretty cool. That would be a really fun one for some interesting textures. Then we've got the looper. So obviously these controls now become looper controls. I'm not going to really bother demonstrating that because we know what a looper does. Then we've got the heliosphere. So we've got reverb, mix and decay, modulation depth. So this is going to be very ambient. There's a mix of reverb, delay, and modulation in this one. That's really fun. I enjoy delays like that when you're trying to create some ambient pad stuff. That's really great as a songwriting tool, and it's still going. To put stuff underneath whatever you're doing. That's a lot of fun. Now we're on to transistor delay. So this is headroom and wow/flutter. So this is going to be like a transistor tape machine. Next up, we have one called Cosmos Echo. So we've got head select and wow/flutter again. I really like that one. You'll notice that I turned that off and the trails cut dead. You can enable the trails to overhang as well. Then we've got multipass delay. We have tap pattern and delay mode here. So this is going to do a couple of different things. That's got a really nice rhythmic sweep to it. That I really like. fun because you sort of have to play with the rhythm a little bit there to be creative. I quite like delays that do that. I'm not into the ones that are too weird, but things like that I really like because they're fun to be creative. Next up, we've got the Adriatic delay. We've got modulation rate and modulation depth. Very, very modulated there. We could get some quite wacky sounds out of that. And then finally, oh, sorry, there's two more. We have Elephant Man, which is modulation depth and chorus / vibrato. So I'm guessing it's chorus one side, vibrato the other side. And then the final one is glitch delay. We have, let me just reset that back to the standard mode. You've got pitch and scale / drift / shuffle. So let's find out what that does. Okay. So this is going to be a bit more random. Let's just move some stuff and see what we get here. That's exactly the type of delay that I said I don't really have any use for or understanding of in my own playing because I don't really know how to be creative with that. But I'm sure in the right hands, that is absolutely killer. So that's all of the brand new Mark II algorithms. All right, so now we're going to check out the legacy models. So to do that, we press the legacy button that's lit up green. And now all of the models listed in green around here are the ones that are the ones we're hearing. So these are the ones from the Mark I DL4. So starting at the top, we've got digital. These controls give us bass and treble. This is just going to be a straight, super clean digital delay sound. Pretty standard, really useful digital delay there. Next up, we've got digital delay with modulation. So it's going to be the same thing, but we're going to have modulation rate and depth. Next up, we've got echo platter. So this is wow and flutter and drive. So now we're going into more tape echo kind of things. The next one we have is a stereo delay. This is the write delay time and the write repeat. So again, we've got that cool stereo delay thing there where we can have two different delays out of time, but like I said, they are automatically synced when you select that model. Next up on the list is ping pong delay. So we've got time offset and stereo spread. So this now is where you're going to get the benefit of me recording this in stereo. So if you're listening on headphones, you're going to hear this delay going from left to right, or whichever way it goes first. The wider I put the stereo spread, the more intense that's going to be. So you can really hear that one bouncing around. Next up, we've got the reverse delay, modulation rate, and modulation depth. We all know what a That's quite cool. We all know what a reverse delay does. That's a bit wacky, but it's a lot of fun. Not the kind of thing you use all the time, but maybe like as an effect in a song. Dynamic delay next. This one is threshold and ducking. So I'm guessing this is like a delay with kind of like a compressor added. The next delay we have is auto volume echo. So this is going to give us modulation depth and swell time. That's really cool when you want to get some real cool ambient things going on in your mix. Then we are back at the looper, so obviously it's the same looper. The next one is the tube echo. So we've got wow and flutter and drive. That is kind of preset as almost like a slapback there. And I've obviously pushed the drive. That's kind of a cool, like, pushed tubey sound. That's really nice, actually. But then we can obviously add repeats to that. And dial in all sorts of cool tape echoey sounds. The next thing we're going to then is, sorry, that was called the tube echo. The next one is the tape echo. The text is quite small on there, but this is now tape echo. That was tube echo. So now we have bass and treble. Like all good tape machines, we can do that as well. We can do that kind of extreme tape delay feedback thing that is a lot of fun to do with analog and tape style delays. Next up, we've got a multi-head delay. These controls give us heads 1 and 2 control and heads 3 and 4. So those are either going to be like a kind of timing sync for the heads, or like a rhythmic pattern maybe, or perhaps just volume. Then next up we have a sweep echo. So we've got sweep rate and sweep depth. The next delay is an analog delay, so just a great analog echo, and these once again go back to bass and treble. That's very typical of an analog echo. That's a very usable sound that we all know and love. Analog echo with modulation. So this now gives us modulation rate and modulation depth. And the final one is a low res delay. So we now have a tone control and a resolution control. So that is all of the Mark I legacy delays. So obviously if you've had the Mark I DL4, all of those sounds will be familiar to you. All right, so now we're going to enable the secret reverb mode of this thing. So to start off, I'm just going to get rid of my delay. So I'm still on the Mark I digital delay here. So we've got that typical digital delay. So first thing I'm going to do is just set that to completely dry. So that's now gone. We have no delay at all. Just a completely dry signal. So here is now where it gets a little bit fussy. This is a bit harder to tweak on the fly. So we're going to be using this button and this control to select our reverb types. This control here is going to give us our different reverb options. So on the cheat sheet, there's a bunch of stuff that control does for different reverbs. And then this control here controls the routing of the reverb. So when it's in this position, the reverb is before the delay. When it's in this position, the delay and reverb are running in parallel. So they split, reverb, delay, and then back together. And then when it's in this position, the reverb is after the delay. So I'm not going to mess about with that whatsoever. I'm just going to leave that exactly wherever it's preset. I will move this one a little bit if there are cool features, but the problem here is you can't just twist this, you have to be holding this at all times. So first thing I'm going to do is hold this button down. I'm just going to move this back to that position. Now what I've now selected is a room reverb. Now you don't know that because you can't see that on the unit, but if I play, there's now a reverb there. So we can use the mix control here to give us a little bit more reverb. So this is a little bit tricky because obviously we always have to hold that button down. Holding that and moving this control increases the mix of the reverb, so obviously more reverb or less reverb. And then this control, which is the repeats, is the reverb decay. So if I set this up higher, reverb takes longer to decay, and lower, it's a much shorter reverb. So again, I'm just going to leave that right up the middle. I'll keep the mix slightly higher so we can hear the reverb. So I'm going to talk you through what all the reverb types are with my cheat sheet. All this stuff is in the user manual, so if you buy one of these units, you'll have all this information in the manual anyway. So the first one is a room reverb, and this control will give us the pre-delay. So we all know what a room reverb sounds like. We don't need to dig too much into that. The next one is called Searchlights. This control handles modulation, mix, and depth. A little bit more of that one. So I did accidentally re-enable my my delay there as well. So the next one is a particle verb, and this control handles the condition. The next one is a double tank reverb, and this handles the modulation depth. And we've got an octo reverb. This handles the intensity this time. This is really hard to tweak on the fly because you are having to press a button at the same time. Next up, we've got a tile reverb where the tweak control handles the pre-delay. Let's get a bit more mix on that one. The next one is a ducking reverb where we also have the pre-delay. Now ducking is an interesting one because if you're just ringing a chord out, you get that reverb, but as soon as you play something else, it ducks the reverb tail to kind of clear up some space. So I don't really use that too much. I'm sure that could be used for some quite cool effects, but for me, I like the reverb to just be there all the time. The next one is a plateau reverb where the tweak control gives us pitch modes. So that's quite interesting. Let's turn the mix up on that. The next one is reverb off. So if you don't want any reverb, you put it to the looper position. The next one is a cave reverb, and this also handles the pre-delay on that. Then a plate reverb where the tweak control also handles the pre-delay. These automatically default with the mix quite low, so I think you do have to set the mix control every time you change reverb model. And I've put some delay back on there. The next one we have is going to be the Ganymede. This is a favorite of mine from the Helix. And what we do here is it's kind of like a modulated reverb. So this is going to be our modulation depth. The next one is a chamber reverb, and this also functions as your pre-delay for that as well. It's really easy to accidentally put the delay back on, as you can see, because I keep doing that. You have to release the button at exactly the same time. And again, I've done it again. This is really easy to get wrong. The next one is hot springs. So this is going to be like a spring reverb, and this control is going to be a spring count. So obviously, the higher we set that control, the more springs that are available. So the minimum amount of springs. Does have that nice springy quality to it. It doesn't sound as good as a real spring reverb, but that's not bad in terms of spring reverbs. And then we have a hall reverb, where the tweak control gives us the pre-delay for the sound. And then the final one is the glitz reverb, and this is our modulation depth for this one. Now, the cool thing here is you've got all those different options. You've got, 30 different delays, 15 different reverbs, and the looper. There's a lot of stuff going on there. That's 45 different sounds in one box. But what you can do that's really cool is you can mix a reverb and a delay. So the best way to do this is, I'm just going to go over this very quickly because we could really be here for hours chopping and changing things. But set your reverb. So I'm just going to use the same reverb that I just used for argument's sake, which is the glitz reverb. Let's just leave that at that. Now I'm just going to pick a delay. So I'm on the legacy setting, so I'm just going to go on the digital delay, and I'm just going to turn the mix control up to just above halfway. So now I'm going to have the glitz reverb with a digital delay on top. Now, with all the different reverbs and delays available in this unit, you can come up with an infinite number of combinations there. Set your reverb, pick a delay over the top, then using the extra control that you'll see on the tweak sheet, you can choose whether the delay is before the reverb or after the reverb, or even running in parallel. So many sounds available. This is a great unit. I do regret missing out on the Mark I, but I will be honest with you, based on the size, I'm much more likely to put the Mark II on a pedal board because it's much more user-friendly in that sense. It doesn't take up a ton of room. Now, there is a lot of really good sounds in there that I like. I prefer the simpler, more analog-based delays, but I did like some of the quite cool rhythmic stuff as well. The reverbs are great. I'm a big fan of the reverbs. I have a Helix anyway, so I'm kind of familiar with a lot of those reverbs already out of the box because they're all in here, as are the Mark II algorithms for the delay. Now, you could be asking yourself, if I have a Helix, do I need this pedal? The answer may be no, because if you're only using the Helix for everything, then perhaps you don't need to add this. But if you do gig with a, bigger pedal board and you're not using something like a Helix, then this is a great way to take those delays and reverbs out with you on the road. I personally don't gig with a big Helix. I do have a HX Stomp XL that I use a lot, but I don't use it for reverbs and delays. I use it for a bunch of other stuff. So being able to take those sounds with me, either in my Helix rack in the studio or my Stomp XL, but put them into this unit, I think is quite useful, because I could literally take that anywhere and have all of my kind of favorite reverbs and delays available. You can do a bunch of stuff with presets. Like I said, you've got 3 presets off the bat and a tap tempo, but you can use the settings to change this button from a tap tempo to a bank switch, which basically gives you 3 more presets. You can have bank 1, A, B, C, and then bank 2, A, B, and C, and you can toggle between those on the fly as well. You can also get more presets, obviously, if you use MIDI with this thing. It's got full MIDI in and out. So there you go. There's a run through of all the sounds from the Line 6 DL4 Mark II. I really, really like this. I did miss out on the Mark I, like I said, but you live and learn. I wish I'd bought one before the price hike, but I have the Mark II now to keep me busy. I really like this. I'm definitely considering taking this out on the road. I think this might make its way onto a pedal board at some point, because I like that you can combine reverbs and delays. You could even set up different presets on this where you only have reverb, for instance. So you don't actually have to have the delay circuit enabled at all, even though that is kind of the main point of it. You could use it as just a reverb unit if you wanted to. So there's definitely a bunch of stuff in there that I think I'm going to be using on a regular basis. I really like it. I think it's a great pedal. And if you haven't already checked one out, please do. I haven't even scratched the surface with the amount of features this thing has, because there's a ton of stuff under the hood that this can do. If you've already got one, you've seen the size on the user manual, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, let me know down below what you thought on the sounds of the DL4 Mark II. And if you have a Mark I DL4, how did the sounds from the Mark II legacy settings compared to your original Mark I? I'd love to hear how close they got with those original algorithms as well. While you're leaving a comment down below letting me know what you thought about the DL4 Mark II, don't forget to hit that like button on the video as well. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, subscriptions really help the channel to keep on growing. There are some links down below where you can check out the DL4 Mark II if you've not already checked it out. Please go check those links out and see what you think for yourself. Let me know what you think of the sounds of this thing, and I'll see you guys very soon. Thanks so much for watching.